is David. Welcome to my channel, Mr. Fancy Dave. Welcome to my channel. So, I'm so happy to get 190 subscribers to my channel. So, tomorrow, tomorrow over my subscribers on my channel. Let's do 191 subscribers to my channel. Let's go to hit 200 subscribers to my channel. I'm so happy to get 200 subscribers to my channel. That's great. I'm so happy right now. So yeah. So let's go to likes, views, likes, and video. So let's go to the likes, views, and likes for my channel, please. So I'm gonna let so much I can get 2,000 likes on my channel. I'm so happy right now. And how many views I got? 11,000 views. Or we call it 12,000 views on YouTube. All I see is 11,000 views on my YouTube. It's fine. So, and how many likes per channel get? Let's go to hit 211,000 views to me. 211,000 likes. I do another video about Sprunki and amazing. So yeah, I just did two of actually a phase 3 of Sprunki, by the way. Yeah, I'll be phase 3 of Sprunki for to be terrifying. Like Vampire has a scary teeth, for the scary human teeth. And Bird with the beat for Quaver killing his head, for playing in his head. I'm gonna be here. Quaver hurting his head for playing for Bird with the music of a beat for Vampire really is. So by the way, so today's video will be called Phase 2 versus Phase 3 versus Phase 4 versus Phase 5 versus Phase 6 versus Phase 7 in New Queen Black Sprunki by Black Sprunki. That's a long title. Oh my goodness. So let's go to the other video of all phases of Sprunki. So yeah, like I said, sorry. So yeah, like I said, in 3, 2, 1, oh. So yeah. Alright. 3, 2, 1, vamos.
Hey everybody, guys, I'm Black Sprunki and I'm very happy to see you all on my channel. Enjoy watching and have a good mood.
Hey guys, Black and I want you to be satisfied after watching our video, so enjoy watching and have a nice day.
You too, Owen. Does it say about faces of Owen? Oh my god, I hear baby noises. to Clucker's mouth. Why you hate this press and saw? I just Clucker for using I didn't say error. It's supposed to be error, not error. Dude, this 3050 is a video. Does it appear to be eyes for his body? That's crazy volume. Like a piece of everything that is flying like that. Okay, great. No, I'm not watching. Crazy volume. Why would you create stabbing in his head? What's wrong with her? What happened to your boss head? Someone's banging on the door like that. Like, who's there? If I spice it with a spice bucket, it's a look at me why his has sparkles in his head. No wonder. Okay, go now. I said ice baby like that. Someone look at TV side fucking noise. Look at people swallow sound at least. If the Rex has a purple face, it's like only has purple face. I mean, it's like it existed his face of purple face. And like it seems like oh wait, hold on a minute. That is a figure, right? Yikes, that is just that. intro music. Yeah, check it out. Alright, double. First it's a fire snake. Let's see if I like snakes. What double is that? It had double ice spikes in his head. For his eyes. Kind of people though. Sound like he's diving backwards again. Alright, next to three. Wait. Is that rumming? Is that rumming with the paper of the 53? I don't remember why. Started axe in his head, then started daddy from Mr. 3. Alright, Sally. That's a hidden mouth. Oh yeah, it could be another something like that. I didn't see eyeballs this small. So these, they were disgusting, oh my goodness. Okay, Tuna. Dude, that's really painful for Tuna. What is happening to her? That's a creepy blood on his body. My master blood up here. Let's see if I can have a master blood up here. That is pretty creepy forward to my head like that. Yeah, myself on copy I can say it tonight. I'm saying like that. What is this? My step is missing. Oh my goodness. kill me. Mr. Funk up here. I wonder. That's a creepy. So this is a creepy wrist face of window outside. That is scary actually. Why are you normal? There's a peaceful fog window outside. I like thinking. What happened to Piggy? Can it creepy surprise of Piggy like that? Yikes, it's on my screen for Piggy. I'm 7. Why is happening for 7 eyes? That's really creepy though. Okay, that's the end of phase 1 to phase 7 of Sprunkies. Let's go to one more video of effective Sprunkies. That is, Aska first, come here. Aska first, come here. Curse. Aska curse. Yeah, Aska curse that is putting out Sprunkies like that.
I've been looking at a lot of fan-made Sprunky phases, and some of them are actually pretty creepy looking. In this video, I want to rank these Sprunkies from most creepy to least creepy, and I'll be basing my ranking on how they look and in some cases how they sound. The categories will be terrifying at the top, then fearsome, scary, and then fine is going to be at the bottom, and that just basically means that they're not scary at all. Now, let's start out with the creepiest Sprunkies, and I think at the top is going to be phase 5 and 6, Mr. Sun. I feel like a lot of the phases just add a little bit more to the previous design, which is why I'm not going to go too much higher than phase 6, but Mr. Sun's design actually looks creepy. His phase 6 especially looks like a demonic eye that you would see in like some type of high fantasy game or a movie like Lord of the Rings. Next in his top tier is going to be phase 2, Mr. Fun Computer, and while I know some of you may actually be surprised at this one, but in my opinion, he is one of the creepier characters to be added in Sprunkies in general. And the reason that I think that mostly is due to his voice line here. The first time I heard this, it's actually the only thing in the Sprunky mod that gave me chills. Now, I think those are the only 3 that I can place in the terrifying tier. Next, let's go ahead and move on to the fearsome tier, and the first character that we're going to put here is going to be Phase 5 and 6 Simon. And while I know you could probably argue that Phase 2 Simon is a little creepy looking, I like that they actually made these two versions look like real monsters, especially with the sharp teeth and red eyes. I also like that Phase 5 has the eyes and the mouth, kind of like Sonic.exe or Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Next, I'm going to add Phase 5 and 6 Silver, and these are the only really creepy versions of these characters. Most of the other ones just look silly to me. I've also started to notice after looking through all these designs that I think large, bulging eyeballs just kind of creep me out, so I think that's just a personal thing for me. Next, we have Phase 5 and 6 Durple, and I like these designs because they look like a demonic snake. I also think that the single red eye on Phase 6 is actually really scary. Another reason that these two stand out for me is that they remind me of a character in Japanese folklore called Rokubi, I believe. You might be familiar with her if you played that Roblox game called Mimic. I know it was popular like a couple of years ago. Next, I'm going to add Phase 2 Sky. This is the only really creepy version of Sky for me. I think this one kind of freaked me out because of how brutal his death was, especially considering that he's only 14 at the time. And also, I think all the pulls coming out of his head reminds me of a old horror character that I grew up with called Hellraiser. Some of y'all may be too young to actually remember that character though. Next, I'm going to add Phase 2 Mr. Sun, and I think the giant eyeball is just my weak spot, like I said earlier. I know most people are probably not bothered by it, but everyone has their weakness. Next, we have Phase 5 and 6 Veneria, and while I know Phase 5 looks a bit more cool than actual scary, even though he does have all those creepy eyes, I think Phase 6 is an absolute abomination. Veneria doesn't even look like a plant anymore, but just a pure monster. The last character that I'm going to actually place in the fearsome tier is going to be Phase 3 and 4 Lime. They basically made this guy look like a zombie, and his body is falling apart completely now. Which is kind of sad when you kind of remember how he looked originally. He looked terrified to be there even before any of the bad stuff started to happen to him. And now he just looks like The Walking Dead. Now, starting the scary tier, I'm going to go ahead and add Phase 5 and 6 Winda. And while Phase 6 is kind of creepy, I think they both look a bit too goofy to really scare me, which is why I'm kind of ranking these two on the lower end. Next, we have Phase 5 and 6 Orin, and I find it kind of funny that once he gets to Phase 6, he just looks like some type of fish monster. I don't know if y'all remember this, but there is a monster in World of Warcraft called the Murloc, and that's what it reminds me of, so I just can't take him seriously. The Phase 5 is kind of interesting with the heart hanging out, but overall, he's just not super scary. Next, I'm going to add Phase 3 and 4 Garnoat, and these two look pretty much the same. He's a bit more creepy than Phase 2 because his armor has a huge hole in it, and you can actually see his rib cage and his innards. And something about his eyes being crossed do kind of freak me out a little bit, but overall, he's not really that creepy. Phase 3 and 4 Sky are next on the list, and while these two don't freak me out as much as the original because I think they're a bit more tame, they are still too creepy to actually put on the lowest tier. Next, I'm going to add Phase 5 and 6 Mr. Tree, and while Phase 5 does look a little derpy, Phase 6 is kind of creepy. I think the eye is pretty gnarly looking, and the blood dripping from the mouth makes him look like a man-eating tree in a way, so I don't think it'd be fair to put them at the lowest tier. I think I need to go ahead and put Phase 5 and 6 Gray next, and while his design doesn't really scare me, I do have to admit that Phase 6 is pretty creepy. He looks like some type of demonic puppet that you would actually find like out in the woods in a horror movie or something. Phase 5, on the other hand, is just a bit too goofy looking to actually be considered scary. Next, we have Phase 3 and 4 Orin, and I like that they stand with the theme of him actually having his body kind of blown open. It went from having his chest opened up to basically him having his face blown open. I also found it kind of interesting that Phase 3 actually looks like how Phase 2 Pinky looks, and I don't think that they did this on accident since these two are actually dating in the lore. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put Black here, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it doesn't seem like Black has a lot of other versions of himself out there, while like these other Sprunkies have a bunch of different phases. But the reason I actually placed him in this tier is because his face is kind of creepy, even though like he isn't disfigured or bloody like some of these other characters. And I feel like he doesn't deserve to be at the bottom tier because he is kind of responsible for like the horror mod actually being a thing. Now, 5 and 6 Ratty are next, and Phase 6 was a bit creepy because it made Ratty look like a real person, kind of like an old man in a way. And while Phase 5 isn't as creepy, the hook through the eye is kind of a nice touch. Next, we have Phase 3 and 4 Mr. Eye, and I think that Phase 3 is actually creepier than Phase 4. The eye here looks a lot like the eyes that were in the background of the original Sprunki horror mod, while the Phase 4 eye actually looks more like a star, so it just doesn't really creep me out as much. Next, I'm going to put Phase 5 and 6 Garnoat, and while these versions are scarier than the original, they don't really stand out too much. The teeth on phase 6 are a little bit creepy, but other than that, they just don't really do anything for me. After that, let's go with phase 5 and 6 Lime, which actually looks pretty good as far as design goes. I like that each phase he basically loses more and more of his body, and by phase 6, he's basically just a skeleton with a little bit of skin on his face. But again, Lime overall just looks too derpy to really be very high on the scare level for me. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add phase 3 and 4 Gray. While I don't think that he looks scary, the implications of how he looks is actually pretty creepy. He literally has an eye missing in phase 3 and has a knife through his head in phase 4, which implies that he was not able to actually keep hiding when all this chaos broke out. Next, we have phase 3 and 4 Ratty, and it's hard to actually make out what's actually happening with him, but it seems like there are spikes being stabbed through his eyes and mouth, which is pretty gross, but I wouldn't really call it scary. I'm going to add phases 3 and 4 Durple next, and this guy didn't make it too high on the list because these versions just look like a less scary version of phase 5 and 6. The wide smile is kind of creepy, but it really just looks like the original Durple, just that now he has a long neck. Winda's 3rd and 4th phase are next, and I actually think that phase 3 is creepier than phase 4. Her face looks more like a skull than an actual cat face, while phase 4 reminds me of what she did to Tuner, which in my opinion is sweet justice. With that, let's move over to the Sprunkies that I think are fine, which just means that they aren't really scary at all. And the first one that I'm going to put here is going to be phase 3 and phase 4 Silver. And you probably noticed that they look almost identical to each other. In neither version is really scary. I just think they look more derpy than anything. I think I need to put every version of Pink in this tier as well. Phase 2 Pinky is the only one that's kind of creepy. All the rest of them just look like a hot mess. It also didn't help that phases 3 to 5 all look alike, just in like different positions. And phase 6 is just phase 5 with a different color background. Now, while I do feel bad for the way that Pinky dies because she was kind of a sweetheart, she definitely isn't a scary character at all. Phase 5 and 6 Sky are next, and I know some of you were probably expecting this one to be higher up for me, but I think the nails and the eyeball just didn't really creep me out. It almost felt like it was just over the top, to the point where it was actually kind of comical. And phase 5 is just too goofy looking to really be scary for me. Next, I'm going to add all the versions of Turner, and for me, none of them are really scary, but rather just sad. The original is just him with a hole in his head, but as you go through the phases, his body starts to deteriorate, and he ends up being tied up and having tape around his mouth. And eventually, when he gets to like phase 6, he's just a red blob of flesh, which is really sad because if you all remember, he was like the only Sprunky that was trying to keep the other ones safe. So it's kind of sad to see him go out in such a horrible way. Now, I'm sure this next one won't surprise anyone, but I have to go ahead and add Jevin into this tier. None of his phases are scary at all. He just looks bored the whole time. And when you get to his 5th and 6th phase, he's just like blacked out for some reason. All in all, I can't really say that he's very creepy. Next, we have phase 2 Winda, and she isn't really that scary. I guess you can argue that her eyes and her smile are a bit weird, and the blood implies that she is a murderer, but her design isn't actually creepy at all. Next, I'm going to add phases 2 through 4 for Simon next. I didn't find any of these to be very scary, mostly because I can't take those large horse teeth very seriously. They just don't really invoke fear, even though I do know that he bit off half a bruised head. Now, no one will probably be surprised at this next one, but Mr. Tree is going to also be at the bottom of this tier. Phases 2 through 4 are really just silly looking for me. The missing poster isn't really scary, and the phase 3 and 4 versions just look like they have an eye added and teeth. But he's still just a tree at the end of the day, and it's really hard to be creeped out by a tree. Durple's going to be next on the list, and him being able to unhinge his jaw is a little bit weird looking, but I was never actually really creeped out by his character, which is why I have to place him fairly low here. Veneria phases 2 through 4 are also going to be placed together because they all look pretty much the same, and while the thought of having a plant growing out of your body is kind of scary, her design just doesn't really give me chills. Like a lot of the other characters, I just feel more sorry for her for the way that she died than anything else. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add Brud, and none of his phases were very scary for me. I feel the same way about him as I did about Veneria, which is that I just feel bad for him, especially since I know that he was just like a dumb sweetheart of a character. Mr. Funball also kind of falls into the same category, meaning that none of his designs are really horrifying at all. Even when you get up to the 5th and the 6th stage, the only thing that's kind of interesting is that his phase 6 has like an error screen, and then you'll see it crack and a face emerges. But considering that this character is definitely one of the good guys, I'm not really surprised that none of his designs are very scary. Next, we have phase 2 Orin, and while I can understand why some people may find him scary, I just thought that he was interesting because of the way that he was killed, which was by like an old Viking ritual. But other than that, I just felt kind of bad for him as well. Silver makes it to the bottom of the list because he's one of the few characters that I felt looked kind of funny. It just seems so goofy having him running around making all that noise, which of course explains probably why he ended up dying in the first place. So I just really can't see him as like a creepy or a scary character. Lime, of course, is going to make it to the very bottom here because even though his skin is peeling off his face and all that, it's kind of hard to take him seriously with his goofy facial expressions, and also knowing that he allowed Ratty to hit him with a hammer and he didn't really do anything. He just seems kind of like a pushover of a character, and no matter how bad his design gets, he's never really going to be like a top tier scary character. And speaking of Ratty, he also makes it to the bottom here because even though his image could be seen as scary, I was always wondering if someone did this to him or if he did it to himself, which I think kind of distracts from him being creepy at all. And finally, we have Phase 2 Gray, and there isn't really a whole lot scary about this character. He was basically just a Sprunki trying to survive and hiding his way out of danger. And for the people that may be wondering where the other versions of Mr. Fun Computer are, I actually cut them out because they all are basically the same, just that some of their voices are distorted. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this video on the screen here. Subscribe to David Crumb, remember the Oris Force, and we'll see you tomorrow with another video. Peace, peace.
Okay, that really is. Alright guys, that's it. That'll be action to Spunkies explained and faces of Spunkies. So yeah, I'm excited for Spunkies for making effects and beats with that. Alright guys, that's it. This is a video of facts and faces of Spunkies, by the way. So phase 1 to phase 7. Yeah. I have 2 parts of phase 8 and phase 13 of Spunkies. So like I said, thanks for watching guys. So in the next video, let's do smack the button, subscribe, and then fuck keys about will do. Those are my videos of the Legend 25 video. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye, love you.